At first, nobody thought much about the Petersons. They were the kind of family that waved from their porch, kept their lawn trimmed, and minded their own business. But behind those closed curtains, something dark was happening. And when police finally entered their daughter's locked bedroom, what they found made one officer drop his flashlight. This is the story of the girl behind the locked door. Please comment where you're watching us from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification. The Petersons lived on Willow Creek Lane, a quiet stretch of road tucked between rolling fields and a sleepy town. Everyone knew everyone here. On the surface, Mark and Lila Peterson looked like the perfect couple. He worked as an accountant. She stayed home, tending to their garden and hosting Sunday dinners. But something about their house felt off. The curtains were always drawn. Their daughter, Emily, was never seen outside. Neighbors sometimes heard the faint sound of a girl's voice at night, not screaming, but talking, almost whispering like she was reading to herself. And every night, precisely at 9 p.m., lights in the upstairs bedroom flickered off, followed by the distinct sound of a lock clicking shut. At first, neighbors brushed it off. Some parents are strict, they said. Maybe she's just shy. But one neighbor, Sandra Lewis, couldn't shake the feeling something wasn't right. She lived across the street and often watched from her window when Mark took the trash out. She noticed he always carried a small silver keychain and one key, in particular, was larger than the rest. That key, Sandra realized, was for the upstairs bedroom. And the next morning, she would see him slip that same key into his briefcase before leaving for work, as if no one else in the world could be trusted with it. One windy afternoon, Sandra found something strange in her mailbox. A torn piece of paper folded twice, with childlike handwriting. It read, "If you find this, my name is Emily. Please don't tell my parents. I'm not allowed outside. They say I'll get sick, but I'm not sick. I just want to see the sky." Sandra froze. Her heart pounded. She looked toward the Petersons' house, curtains still drawn. Was it real? Or some kind of prank? She wanted to believe it was nothing. But something in the tone of that note, the trembling letters, the smudged pencil marks, told her this was written by someone desperate. Days later, Sandra caught a glimpse of Lila Peterson at the grocery store. Polite, composed, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. When Sandra cautiously asked about Emily, Lila's smile faded. "She's homeschooled," she said flatly. "She's a delicate child. We prefer to keep her close." Then, without another word, she turned her cart and walked away. That night, Sandra saw the lights flick off again at 9 p.m. sharp. But this time, there were two clicks. One lock, and then another. The following week, a local truancy officer visited the elementary school. "Do you have records for Emily Peterson?" he asked the school secretary. The woman checked her files. "No, no student by that name." He frowned. "Are you sure? The Petersons live 2 blocks from here." She double-checked. Still nothing. Emily Peterson didn't exist, not in school records, not in health files, nowhere. It was as if the girl behind the locked door had never been born. Sandra, unable to sleep, finally called the police. "I know this sounds strange," she said, "but I think a child is being kept locked in a room." The dispatcher's tone softened. "Ma'am, do you have evidence of abuse?" Sandra hesitated. "No, but I found a note. And I hear the locks every night." The officer on the other end sighed. It wasn't enough for a warrant, but he promised to perform a welfare check. When 2 officers arrived at the Peterson house the next afternoon, Lila answered the door with a calm smile and a plate of cookies. "Everything's fine, officers," she said. "Our daughter's upstairs resting." But when they asked to see her, Lila's smile tightened. "She's asleep. Please, I don't want to wake her." Officer Daniels, a father of 2 himself, exchanged a look with his partner. Something didn't feel right. He asked if they could take just a quick look to make sure the child was safe. "Of course," Lila said, though her tone had lost its warmth. "But please be quiet." The officers followed her up the stairs. The house was spotless and unnervingly so. No toys, no family photos featuring a little girl, not even a backpack. When they reached the top, Lila pointed toward a white door at the end of the hall. "That's her room," she whispered. The door was locked from the outside. "You said she's sleeping," Officer Daniels said carefully. "Why is the door locked?" Lila's hands trembled slightly. "It's for her safety. She sleepwalks. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Ma'am, Daniels said, we'll need to confirm she's okay. Lila hesitated, then called down the hall. Emily, sweetheart, the police are here. Everything's fine, go back to sleep. Silence. The house was so still you could hear the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Daniels leaned in. Emily, can you hear us? No response. He reached for the lock. Ma'am, we're opening this door. No. Lila stepped between them. Please, you'll frighten her. Daniel's partner radioed in, his voice low. Possible child neglect. Requesting backup. The house was so still you could hear the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Daniels leaned in. Emily, can you hear us? No response. He reached for the lock. Ma'am, we're opening this door. No. Lila stepped between them. Please, you'll frighten her. Daniel's partner radioed in, his voice low. Possible child neglect. Requesting backup. Why Sandra had seen before. He finally exhaled through his nose and muttered, You're making a mistake. The officer stepped back as he inserted the key. The key turned with a heavy click. The door creaked open, releasing a stale, almost chemical smell, something between disinfectant and decay. Daniels raised his flashlight. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a single bulb dangling from the ceiling. The windows had been nailed shut from the inside. In the center of the room sat a small bed perfectly made. Too perfect. On the walls were drawings of hundreds of crude, childlike sketches of clouds, birds, and a bright yellow sun. But one thing was missing. Emily. Where is she? Daniels asked sharply. Lila's lips quivered. She's safe. Safe where? Mark's voice cracked. You don't understand. We did what we had to do. What do you mean? She was getting worse. Mark whispered. She wasn't our little girl anymore. Daniel's partner stepped closer, the flashlight trembling slightly. Sir, you need to explain that. Mark didn't. He just stared at the empty bed, eyes glassy as if seeing something the officers couldn't. Daniels noticed something odd, a thin outline on the floorboards beneath the bed. Move this, he said, as the officers dragged the bed aside. They found a square wooden panel, slightly misaligned. Mark shouted, Don't touch that. Daniels ignored him and pulled the panel open. A cold draft rose from below, and something else. A faint sound. Breathing. Very faint, but unmistakable. Daniels shone his flashlight into the darkness. A narrow crawl space descended into what looked like a basement chamber. He called out, voice trembling, Emily, are you down there? For a few seconds, nothing. Then, who's there? The voice was weak, rasping, like someone who hadn't spoken in days. Lila burst into tears. Please stop. You're going to ruin everything. Mark lunged forward, but the officers restrained him. Daniels pointed the beam downward again. A small face appeared in the dark, pale, eyes wide and hollow. It was a child, frail, trembling, clutching something in her hands. Daniels reached a hand down. It's okay, Emily. You're safe now. She didn't move. They said, You'd take me away, she whispered. Daniel's heart broke. We're here to help you. Slowly, Emily stepped into the light, barefoot, wearing an oversized nightgown. Her hair was tangled and uneven, as though cut with scissors by someone untrained. In her hands, she held a small music box, old, chipped, painted pink. She turned the key, and a soft lullaby began to play. Mommy said, she murmured, If I play this, I won't forget. The officers lifted her out carefully, wrapping a blanket around her. Daniels looked toward the parents. You're both under arrest for unlawful confinement, and you don't understand. Lila screamed, That's not our daughter. The room fell silent. Daniels blinked. What did you just say? Mark's voice cracked. Our Emily died 3 years ago. Then who is this? Lila's tears streamed down her face. We don't know. She showed up after the funeral. Daniels stared at them in disbelief. You're saying you locked a child in a room for 3 years because you thought she wasn't yours. Mark didn't answer. He just whispered, She called me Daddy the first night she came back, but her eyes were different. A detective named Maria Vance arrived within minutes. She'd handled missing person cases for nearly 2 decades, but something about this house made her skin crawl the second she crossed the threshold. Seal the scene, she ordered. As technicians mapped the walls with thermal scanners, Maria knelt beside Emily the pale, trembling girl wrapped in a blanket. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "can you tell me who's in that wall?" Emily just shook her head. She doesn't like the light. The scanner beeped. "Detective," a tech called, "we've got a cavity roughly 4 feet wide, 6 feet high." Daniels helped remove the first panel. The drywall crumbled easily, revealing wood and old plaster behind it like someone had sealed it in a hurry. Then, beneath the debris, something caught the flashlight beam. A child's handprint pressed into the dust. The room fell silent. They widened the opening until they could peer inside. It wasn't another room, more like a narrow cell, lined with insulation and old wallpaper. A small mattress lay on the floor, gray with age. And on the wall opposite, the hole hung a photograph. A smiling little girl, the real Emily Peterson, dated 2018. Daniel's voice cracked. "This is the original child." But beneath the photo, taped to the wall with yellowing masking tape, was something else, a birth certificate. The name read Claire Manning. Detective Vance pulled up state records. Claire Manning, age 8, reported missing from a town 80 miles away. Date of disappearance: the same week Emily Peterson died. Vance looked over her shoulder at the pale child, now sitting with a medic. If that's Claire, then these parents didn't kidnap her for ransom. Then why lock her up? Daniels asked. Vance's eyes hardened. Because they were trying to replace the daughter they lost. In separate rooms, both Mark and Lila gave near-identical stories. A year after their daughter's death, Lila began hearing Emily's voice. She claimed to be calling from the woods behind their home. One night, she followed the voice and found a little girl standing barefoot by the tree line. She said her name was Claire. Lila sobbed. But when I looked at her, I saw Emily. Same hair, same freckles. She even hummed the lullaby Emily used to hum. So they took her in, quietly. No adoption, no paperwork, just replaced their loss. When neighbors started asking questions, Mark built the lock. "We thought we were protecting her," he said, "from the world, from anyone who'd take her away." But the longer Claire stayed, the more she changed. She stopped eating, Lila whispered. She'd sit on the floor and draw the same picture over and over a wall, with someone behind it. Forensics cataloged everything from the hidden chamber. Crayon drawings depicting 2 girls holding hands. Scratched words on the plaster. "I am still here." A lock of hair, sealed in a jar labeled E. Peterson. DNA tests later confirmed the hair belonged to the real Emily. But how it ended up sealed inside that wall, no one could explain. Vance theorized Mark and Lila built the chamber to preserve Emily's memory, a twisted shrine of grief. Then, when Claire appeared, their guilt turned into obsession. They tried to mold her into Emily, dressing her the same, cutting her hair, teaching her the same songs. And when she began to remember her real name, they locked her away. As investigators combed the house, a final discovery sent shockwaves through the team. Beneath the crawl space, another trapdoor. Inside was an old camcorder, dust-covered but intact. The first tape was labeled Day 1, Our Emily Returns. Maria Vance pressed play. The footage showed Lila smiling through tears, holding the frightened child in her arms. "Say hi to Daddy," she whispered. Mark's voice, shaky behind the camera. "Our baby's home." The child didn't smile. She only stared directly into the lens, eyes dull, almost empty. Then she said something barely audible, but enough to chill everyone watching. "The real Emily doesn't like when I talk." Later that night, Claire sat silently in a hospital room. Doctors noted signs of prolonged confinement malnutrition, scars on her wrists where the cuffs once rubbed. When asked about the wall, she drew it again. This time, she added a small square shape behind it, a hidden room within a room. "That's where she sleeps," Claire murmured. "Who?" "The other Emily." Detectives assumed it was trauma, talking the imagination of a child who'd been through too much. But then, one of the forensics teams called from the house. "Detective Vance," the voice crackled over the radio. "We found another cavity behind the foundation. It's human-sized." They excavated carefully, pulling away rotted beams until the air turned cold and thick. Beneath a layer of concrete, They uncovered what was left of a small skeleton, the name Emily stitched onto the fabric of its faded pajamas. Silence. Daniels turned away, jaw clenched. Vance whispered, "So the real Emily never left this house." Back at the hospital, Claire began humming. Nurses said it was the same lullaby from the music box. But when they checked the toy, the winding key was missing. She said she gave it back to Emily, one nurse reported. Later that night, as Claire slept, the hallway cameras outside her room picked up faint audio. A child's voice whispering, "Thank you for letting me out." The Petersons remain in custody, charged with unlawful imprisonment, child endangerment, and abuse. But as investigators prepare to close the case, one final question hangs in the air. If Emily's remains were buried in that wall, who opened a lock from the inside the night police arrived? Because according to Daniel's body cam footage, the door was already unlocked. To be continued, Part 2. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notification. Thanks for watching.